welcome to Cinema Wellman. I'm your host, David, and July is history, which means that the summer is half over. And I was much more upset about that when I was teaching. Now, July and August are just 2 more months that I get to go to work. And I've been working quite a lot lately and a lot of overtime, which is cut into production time, which has resulted in fewer episodes recently. And it would remind me that I make all the rules here and there is really no set schedule. But my OCD had a problem with that, and I've been dealing and struggling with that and a couple of other things recently. But I think I've sorted most of it out. So we're back in business today with the worst and the best of the month of July, and we will begin as we always do, which is with the worst. From 2020, Shadow in the Cloud, rated R, 83 minutes. IMDb says 5, directed by Roseanne Lang. This one is on me, and I guess that's a silly thing to say since really all of this is on me. Nobody but the Academy makes me watch movies, and this one certainly wasn't nominated for any Oscars when it was released 4 years ago. The premise of Shadow in the Cloud sounded like a retelling of a favorite Twilight Zone episode of mine, so I thought I'd give it a shot. And it was only 83 minutes long, as I said, and that actually should have been a red flag. IMDb says, a female World War II pilot traveling with top-secret documents on a B-17 Flying Fortress encounters an evil presence on board the flight. Chloe Grace Moretz stars, and I have nothing against her, although I hated Kick-Ass. That wasn't her fault, though. Moretz is Maud, the female World War II pilot, of which there were over 1,000 during the real war, so no issue there. I did have an issue with an over-the-top display of misogyny and vulgarity as the male crew discusses Maud's presence on the mission over the radio, and she can hear it. Now, I realize there must have been hazing, of course, and it had to be crude, but this could have been toned down 50%, and we'd still hate every man on the plane and want them to die. It was unnecessary. And I'm usually not offended by stuff like that, but it was over the top. And when women are the target, it's unnecessary. I mentioned that Maud could hear them on the radio because she's in the bubble under the plane where the ball turret gunner sat. We don't see anyone other than her in the glass bubble for most of the movie in the beginning, which I thought was an interesting strategy, but then they abandoned it when this whole thing goes off the rails and Maud sees a creature on the wing. Here come the spoilers, since I really don't think you should see this, and I'll try to make it quick. Maud sees the creature multiple times, but nobody else does, of course. When we finally see the creature, it appears to be a gigantic rat with a man's body. It's terrible makeup, it's terrible prosthetics, it's terrible CGI. Whatever they used, it was terrible. Then it's revealed that the valise containing those top-secret documents actually contains her baby she had with one of the men on board, who they're now showing for some reason. The plane crashes, and this baby is some kind of John Wick baby because it survives so many things that would instantly kill a tiny baby. Now, I was not rooting for the baby to die. No. I'm just saying, John Wick baby. This isn't even worth 83 minutes of your time. They do end up killing that rat thing, but by the time that happened, I really didn't care, and I don't even remember how they did it. I was hoping the baby was going to fight the rat man thing to the death, and I would root for the baby. Next is a sci-fi movie from 1969. If you're thinking that all sci-fi from that era is pure cheese, well, Kubrick made 2001: A Space Odyssey the year before this one. The makers of Moon 02 must have missed that one. Moon 02, rated G, 100 minutes. IMDb says 4.5. Directed by Roy Ward Baker. Here's IMDb. A space salvage expert and his partner become involved with a group of criminals intent on hijacking a small asteroid made of sapphire and crashing it into the moon. Yes, you did hear that correctly. Every once in a while I run across a bad movie that I don't even bother to jot down notes for while I'm watching it. I go right to my phone and I start recording a bunch of short videos. Whenever I do that, I like to present my thoughts as they were recorded in their stream of consciousness manner, And I love that all these videos are always recorded in the dark. All right, here we go. This trash was unfortunately released a couple of months after the actual moon landing. So people had already seen the real thing. Why watch this bullshit? It's supposed to take place in 2021. Nothing better than a sci-fi film from the 60s or 70s trying to predict years that we've already lived. They have us, of course, wearing all one-piece garments, and most of it is shiny. I miss that fashion trend. And I'll bring it up again. I was promised flying cars in 7th grade, and I still don't have them. The astronauts are drinking out of juice boxes on the spaceship. Did this movie invent the juice box? Can juice boxes be drank in space? Drunken? See, now that I don't teach English anymore, I don't even care. The guns look like Smith & Wesson handguns that have been bedazzled. It's a Western. It's a space Western. It's a bad space Western. I love their use of the lunar module. I'm sure that NASA saw this and said, I wish ours did that. It takes off and lands and takes off and lands. Didn't the top just come off that and the bottom stay? I don't know. Whatever. Theirs is all sorts of multi-purpose, unilateral. Go to IMDb and watch the trailer. Save yourself the time. You'll see what I'm talking about. Now let's talk about the best of July. And we're going to begin with a duo of films. And I'm putting them together. And there's a duo of films that I would usually dismiss due to what they are. Both from 2024, Twisters and Beverly Hills Cop Axel F. Let's begin with a couple of math problems. Twisters, 2024, minus Twister, 1996, equals 28 years. Beverly Hills Cop Axel F, 2024, minus Beverly Hills Cop 3, 1994, because that was the most recent one, 30 years. So maybe you should wait 28 to 30 years before giving me a sequel, and maybe I'll like it. So if you've spent any time at all here with us in Cinema Wellman, you know how we tend to load sequels and reboots and reimaginings and standalone sequels and legacy sequels and standalone legacy sequels, if they even exist. Get an original idea, people. We don't want to see the same old warmed up junk on our plates year after year. At least I don't. It's why I tend to sometimes go overboard about loving movies that I find to be original. All of that being said, I enjoyed both of these movies and would recommend them to anyone who enjoyed the originals. Not the sequels to Beverly Hills Cop. I'm talking about the original one, actually. According to Screen Rant, Twisters is, get this, quote, not a remake or reboot of the original Twister, but a standalone sequel. As Lisa always said, yeah, whatever. IMDb says a retired tornado chaser and meteorologist is persuaded to return to Oklahoma to work with a new team and new technologies and an old plot. The effects were fun, and that's what drives that story anyway. I saw it in the IMAX, which was fun, although I had to move up my seat 2 rows because of the sound. It was actually painfully loud. I don't recall ever having done that before in a theater. And if you like Eddie Murphy, definitely check out Beverly Hills Cop Axel F. IMDb will provide all you need to know about this. This one is a sequel, I guess. Axel Foley returns to Beverly Hills after his daughter's life is threatened and works with old pals John Taggart and Billy Rosewood to uncover a conspiracy. Murphy still has the charm and that smile and that laugh that made us like Axel, and him really, so many years ago. And I forgave the fact that there were 2 chase scenes in the first 25 minutes of the movie. Again, as I said, I guess I have a better chance at liking your sequel, or whatever the hell you want to call it, if you wait 28 to 30 years before you make it. Next, from 2024, it's Faye. Rated PG, 91 minutes. IMDb has 7.1 and directed by Laurent Bozereau. IMDb, Faye Dunaway reflects on her life and candidly discusses the triumphs and challenges of her illustrious career. Since this is a documentary about Faye Dunaway, it obviously helps if you're a fan of hers, which I am. Hollywood history is filled with stories about difficult actresses. To me, this always meant that the women were strong, they spoke their mind, and they advocated for themselves. Several traits men in Hollywood had no time for, apparently, since they complained about these actresses all the time. I guess women were expected to keep their mouths shut and do everything the men told them to. Then they'd be happy. I'm happy to report that there were a ton of actresses out there who spoke up and made things difficult for the male producers and directors. Faye Dunaway certainly has this reputation, and there are certain segments of the interview in this documentary that kind of show her being a tad, shall I say, difficult. At one point, she asks for a glass of water. When she's brought a bottle of water, she accepts it, but looks into the camera, rolls her eyes, and says, I asked for a glass of water, but... I thoroughly enjoyed this look at the long and storied career of Dunaway with her first-person accounts of working on some excellent films during her career. For what it's worth, and nobody asked, but here it is, my personal Faye Dunaway top 5 in no particular order: Network, The Thomas Crown Affair, 3 Days of the Condor, Bonnie and Clyde, and Chinatown. This documentary also reminded me of one of the all-time greatest Hollywood photos ever taken. Dunaway was nominated for 3 Oscars, winning 1 for Best Actress in Network. The photo, which I posted on the blog, cinemawellman.com, and if you're watching on YouTube, it's on the screen right now. So the only, if you're listening to it, I can't help you other than you can just Google it, Google image it. It shows Dunaway in the wee hours after her Oscar win at the pool of the Beverly Hills Hotel on March 29th, 1977. She's dressed in silk and high heels. The trade papers are all strewn at her feet. Her Oscar is on the table, and she looks totally wiped out. It's so very staged and very Hollywood. I may need to get a copy of that for the studio at some point. Next is a prequel. Really? Is it a prequel? How'd they get me to bite on a prequel being good? Oh, right, Furiosa kind of set that precedent earlier this year. From 2024, we have A Quiet Place Day 1, rated PG-13, 99 minutes, IMDb says 6.5, directed by Michael Sarnowski. IMDb tells us a young woman named Sam finds herself trapped in New York City during the early stages of an invasion by alien creatures with ultra-sensitive hearing. This is the third in this series created by John Krasinski. He directed the first 2, which starred Emily Blunt. Again, how does he get her in these movies? They're not around for this prequel, but those scary monsters with impeccable hearing certainly are, and they're here in numbers. Lupita Nyong'o is Sam, who is dealing with some very difficult times before the creatures show up, and she's got a support cat, and the cat's wonderful. Since the monsters can hear every tiny sound people make, I found it very suspenseful at times. And I think the monsters are terrifying, and they're fast. I mean, they make quick work of you, so that's got to help, but man, I like this a lot. But isn't the first movie technically also day 1 of this whole thing? Aren't we with Emily Blunt and her family when these things show up? And we're just with different people when they show up in this movie? But I may be wrong. That wouldn't be a surprise. But I like this movie regardless of that little nitpick. One movie left, and it's about faking the moon landing. So it's a documentary. From 2024, Fly Me to the Moon, rated PG-13, 132 minutes. IMDb says 6.8, directed by Greg Berlanti. Of course, I'm just joking about the documentary part. We definitely went to the moon in 1969, and Stanley Kubrick had nothing to do with it. IMDb tells us marketing maven Kelly Jones wreaks havoc on launch director Cole Davis's already difficult task. When the White House deems the mission too important to fail, the countdown truly begins. Kelly Jones is played by Scarlett Johansson, And Channing Tatum, not a fan, plays Cole Davis, although he was fine in this. I thought they had some good screen chemistry going, and the supporting cast is also quite good. Ray Romano is very good as one of the technicians. I really like that. I liked him in that part, and I'm not a big fan of his either. Woody Harrelson plays government agent Mo Burkus, and Burkus he works for Nixon and pulls all the strings behind the scenes when the government decides that they're going to need to fake the moon landing in case the real one doesn't work. The production design team and costumes and hair and makeup are a great job by everyone. Everything's wonderfully 1969. And not that I want it to happen again, but it's fun seeing people smoking on airplanes again. This was also a bit of a rarity in that I like this movie so much, and it was 2 hours and 12 minutes long. And I usually complain about that. I guess they did a good job distracting me with all the space stuff and the launches and Scarlet. Well done. Fly Me to the Moon reminded me at times of 1997's Wag the Dog, but that film was much darker. If you haven't seen that one, put that on your list. That one will have you wondering how much you should believe about what the media tells you. And it was made 27 years ago. Well, that is a wrap from here at Cinema Wellman as we recap the worst and the best from the month of July. We hope you'll join us again next time as we present which was worse. Number 8, Slaughterhouse versus Llamageddon. Two of my favorite animals go head to head to, I'm guessing, see how many humans they can kill. That's just a guess on my part. The animals may be all about helping the humans in both of these movies. Who knows? Join us when we find out. And until then, take care.